Sarah Breedlove, known as Madam C.J. Walker, was born December 23, 1867. Sarah had lived during the time when the Ku Klux Klan, along with the White Brotherhood, would burn down African American schools and churches. Every morning, Sarah and her brother would walk through the ashes of the burnt schools and churches. The Klansmen thought that an educated colored person was a bad thing because if they learned the proper education, who knows what they might do.
At the age of 7, Madam C.J. Walker had lost her parents to yellow fever and had to live with her sister. She and her sister, in order to make a living, had to do laundry, but eventually they began to lose half of their clients to yellow fever. Soon, she and her sister moved to Vicksburg, Mississippi.
She lived with her sister and her sister's husband, who was a woman abuser. Because of this abuse, Madam C.J. Walker married a laborer named Moses McWilliams at the age of 13. By the time she was 14, she had had one child. By the time her daughter was 3, Moses had died and she was left a widow with one child.
After years of her hard labor and poor nutrition, she was going bald. She had tried many cures, but they did not seem to work. Even though she was a poor laundress, she put aside small parts of her wages to give her daughter the education she deserved. By 1902, she had enough money to send Leela to Knoxville College, a small colored school in Tennessee.
In 1904, during the St. Louis World Fair, she attended and spoke at the chapter of the National Association of Colored Women with Margaret Washington, Booker T. Washington's wife, reminding her audience of their motto, "Lifting as we climb." After the meeting, she went home and kneeled down and prayed for a better life and that her hair would not fall out anymore.
The next morning, there was still hair on her pillow, but she did not despair. She had had a dream about how in Africa they had used natural oils in order to maintain healthy hair, so she started searching for things like sulfur, petroleum, and tartar salve and went to the local pharmacies. She soon learned that her brother had died, so she moved to Denver, Colorado to live with her brother's wife and children. She had rented their attic and set up a makeshift laboratory in order to create her formulas. She could only work during the night because during the day she was a cook for Mr. E.L. Schultz, who owned the largest pharmacy in Denver.
When Sarah made a batch with the ingredients she got from the pharmacy, she soon started to create her own hair products. When she thought that the batch was right, she put it on her hair and it started to grow back faster than it had ever fallen out.
Even though she had used very strong ingredients, they never seemed to burn the scalp. When mixed with the right combination, it helped and made the hair and scalp healthier. Soon she had created her first 3 products, which she had ready for sale: vegetable shampoo, wonderful hair grower, and glossine. The products worked using combination therapy, which meant that you would use the vegetable shampoo to wash the hair, then the wonderful hair grower to nourish the scalp, and last would use the hot comb that Sarah had designed for African American women to press in the glossine, which was a light oil that softens women's curls. Madam C.J. Walker then put out her very first advertisement. She did not use a light-skinned, straight-hair model. She used herself in her ads to emphasize the health of the scalp of the length of her own healthy hair.
At the time, women, both white and colored, were not permitted to vote or own property. Colored people in many parts of the country had even fewer rights. There are restaurants they could not eat in. There are also separate drinking fountains and restrooms for them. They were not even allowed to enter theaters and hotels. If you were a woman of color, then you had an even rougher life and no position or status.
In 1905, Sarah married Charles Walker, who was an old friend from St. Louis, and became Mrs. C.J. Walker. However, she spelled Madam without the E because she didn't want her name associated with France. Sarah decided to name her new company MME C.J. Walker Manufacturing Company.
When Walker agents visited their customers, they discussed the benefits of working for the company. All customers were viewed as potential agents. She had started out making $5 a week, which was impressive considering she was making 2 times as much as the average $2.50 that colored women made a week. But she still was making $12 less than the white man. By 1908, only 2 years after starting her company, Madam Walker had signed on nearly 100 representatives. She had sold directly to consumers through their homes and the mail service.
By then, she was making $400 a week, which was even more money than that was expected of the average white man. After a few years, she left Layla, her daughter, in charge of the Pittsburgh business, and she moved to Indianapolis, Indiana, which was closer to the nation's center and major transportation system.
By now, the company was making more than $3,000 a week, a sum equal to more than $70,000 a week today. In 1911, a business run by colored women, such earnings were most inconceivable.
Even though she had worked hard, she had other interests. She also enjoyed going to movies. One evening, she took a dime to pay for a ticket and handed it to the woman in the box office of the ISIS movie theater. The ticket taker pushed the dime back and said 25 cents is the cost for colored people. After this incident, she went to F.B. Ransom, her chief lawyer, and instructed him to sue the ISIS theater on the grounds of racial discrimination. After that, she hired an architect and began a design for a new building to be called the Walker Building. This building would cover an entire city block. In addition to office and factory space, it would include an elegant movie theater, especially for the city's colored population. This was the beginning of Madam Walker's contribution to the cultural life of Indianapolis.
Madam Walker Theater, factories, and her offices allowed many colored women to have jobs. Alice Kelly was one of the first women in America to be a factory supervisor. Because Alice could spell and write better than Madam Walker, she was put in charge of helping her employer learn letter writing and grammatical skills.
By 1912, there were several hundred people working in the factory in Indianapolis and more than 1,000 agents traveling door to door. By now, she had run one of the biggest companies in America. During 1912, she had attended the National Negro Business League convention in Chicago. At this time, she was the richest colored woman in America and one of the richest colored Americans.
She had sat down in her fancy clothes and listened as Booker T. Washington spoke. She remembered another meeting and one of her original inspirations, Margaret Washington. During that time, Mr. Washington introduced a series of colored men who described their business successes. Madam Walker repeatedly tried to catch his eye, but he didn't even look her way. Finally, she lost her patience and sprang to her feet.
Surely you are not going to shut the door in my face, she protested. I feel that I am in a business that is a credit to the womanhood of our race. Everyone in the room was silent, and Mr. Washington looked nervous because National Negro Business League was a conference for successful colored men. They all believed that colored women were more commonly home, minding the family, cooking, and washing.
I am a woman who came from the cotton fields of the South. I was promoted from the fields to the washtubs. I promoted myself into the business of manufacturing hair goods. I have built my own factory on my own ground. As Madam Walker spoke, everyone listened as if they had, even if they had not touched a bullworm with their bare fingers, and if he had not seen the Klansmen burn a church or school, they still could smell the ashes.
She said that my objective in life is not to simply make money for myself, but to use part of what I make in trying to help others. Nobody else in the convention has said that with these words, Madam Walker proved herself more than equal to any man in that room.